So we've been trained and educated to prepare and to study for things and to know the right answer so we can take tests and we can know what's right. And there's a pretty big assumption with this whole thing, or premise, is that, first of all, it suggests or presupposes that there is an objective right answer for things. And for some things there are, you could say, for like math, or even you could say maybe for grammar, or some types of science, there's clearly a correct, objectively right answer. However, for other things, more relational things, okay, more intuitive things, and there's not always, it's more of a relative answer, you could say. It might be an answer is the answer or solution or the action you take, the thing you say, is going to be relational. It's going to be the right answer to say in this moment to this person. Okay? And that's a different type of intelligence. The one is, it's more of an intellectual. The first one, we prepare. We're learning from memory. We're figuring out. You can certainly think critically as well, and that's partly, at least, intellectual. It could be maybe critical thinking isn't just intellectual, but that's another story. And so we're analytical, like we know the right answer, and our brains are very powerful, right? And it has a lot of use. That is a type of intelligence. But there's also this intuitive relational intelligence, and I would suggest that a lot of the most important things in our lives, I would say the most important decisions in our lives, are better answered not from the objectively right answer or right thing to do. It's more relational. It's like, with this situation, what do I do in this situation? I'm talking about important things like who we marry, or what, do we have another child or not? Or do I study this, or do I have a career in this or this? Do we live here or there? Even more simple things, like when your child asks you a question, okay, about life, is it more important to give them the right answer, or would it be better maybe to give him or her the answer that maybe he or she needs to hear? Not in a bad way, but the truth that they need at that moment in their development, because truth changes as we grow, right? And so, you could say there's still, absolute truth in that, sure. But our truth, it refines itself and it deepens and it changes as we mature and as our consciousness expands. Have you ever noticed when you expand to a new level of consciousness, the way you see life changes? You now have different truths, or you could even say deeper truths, your truths deepen and change. So there's this capacity we have, or this magic, or this intuition, and this energy that we have, this discernment, I'll call it. And I talk about this quite a bit. When it happens when we allow the energy of the situation in. When our child asks us a question, or our client wants to know, one's guidance on something, when we allow that information in, okay, the magic happens when the energy of the situation meets our intuition and our spirit. And then when that energy blends, that's when the good stuff happens, right? That's when, I call it, in the book I wrote, Natural Way of Being, I call it your call for action. It ignites the energy of your situation and the person that's asking you the question, or the decision that you're making. That energy of that interacts with the center of your spirit, with your gut, with your intuition. And then those energies blend. And then, like this intuitive truth, the truth of the moment, the truth of that situation, of the right thing to say in that moment, emerges. And then I call it your call for action. And you know what to do. You intuitively know what to say. Okay, and it may not even make sense intellectually, but it just feels right. This is how I'm going to answer that question. When my 10-year-old child asks, I'm going to answer it in this way. I know, and that is this gift that we all have. Okay, and it may show itself. We may experience it differently. They talk about different, types of intuition, of clear hearing and clear seeing and clear knowing and clear feeling. But I would argue that they're all accessing the same thing. We just do it in different ways. So however you access your intuition and your truth of the moment, I'll call it, we're geared for that. But we have to learn to trust that and to rely on that. And sometimes we have to let go of relying on our intellect, and in searching for the right answer, and go more for the relational answer. Because if you think about it, the right intellectual answer is more static, right? It's more separate from, it's more theoretical, it's more cut off from my current situation. It's going to be 2 + 2 is 4, no matter where you are, and so it's this objective information, which is great, and it has a lot of use and a lot of value for a lot of different things. But my thing is do we take that into a thing where we ought to be using this more relational intelligence, this subjective, this intuitive intelligence, and so I don't have any problem with the analytical, but do we bring it into places where it has no business being, where we could, draw on the relational? And so it's learning to trust that, and it's learning to trust I would call it resourcefulness, okay, rather than knowing what to, having a plan, is great. But then it's almost like letting go of the plan and trusting what comes to you in the moment. And even when things go wrong, because the best laid plans, or man plans and God's laughs, whatever you want to use, we have this plan, but then things get turned upside down, and we've got to go with what is. It happened when we did our last retreat. I had these amazing outlines of activities we were going to do, and the weather just went all over. It was like rainy and cold. It was like a winter storm. It was supposed to be the spring equinox, and we had this like winter storm. So it was almost like forced me and the participants. It's like, okay, so this is our situation. So what do we do now? And I changed the order. Some things we did, some things I added, but I had this guidance. I could feel it, and it was so cool. I could feel it's like, oh, this is what we need to be doing right now. It's not what we plan to do on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, but it's what we need to be doing. And that's that resourcefulness, is like, if we're willing to listen, it's like there's always going to be that resourcefulness and that call for action and that knowing what to do. It's there if we can find it and trust it and have the courage to act on it, And so that's what I would say. It's a little different than how we were trained. It's not like studying for a math test, but it's something that a lot of you have been developing this, but it's something we can deepen even further. I continue to deepen this more and more and trust it more and more. And the more we trust it, the more powerful it gets. So that is my video for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing week, and maybe just during your week is tune into, that resourcefulness, tune into that magic blending of energy of the situation that blends with your spirit and your intuition, and then listen for your call for action and trust that the thing that's coming to you is maybe the thing to say or the thing to do, even if it doesn't totally make sense intellectually. So anyway, I will see you in a week.